What's going on, y'all? It's Dukes with Random Bible Proverbs chapter 11, verse 1. Alright, there's 5 things we gotta keep in mind whenever we're talking about Proverbs chapter 11, verse 1. The first thing is buying and selling. Buying and selling are an integral part of everyday life of the world. Scripture makes it clear that God expects moral dealings by his people in this area of life as in every other. This verse deals with God's standards for buying and selling. It's a standard of honesty, being honest in the marketplace when it comes to buying something or selling something. We need to be honest in our dealings with that, with other people, with ourselves. The second thing we need to keep in mind is honesty, which is behavior in action and words that aims to convey truth. This quality is an essential aspect of God's own nature and purposes, and it is required of those whom he calls to be his people. Honesty is demanded of believers. Dishonest dealing is forbidden by God. Dishonest dealing, y'all, it could be any type of dealing with people, whether it's in your business, in your workplace. One thing that comes to mind is you own a business, you pay your friend, like say your friend worked for you, you pay him more than the other person even though they're doing the same job. That's dishonest. You know what you should be paying your workers, but you don't pay them that because you're putting money somewhere else for some other reason, or keeping it for yourself. It's dishonest. We know what dishonesty is. Honesty is demanded of us as believers. The scripture also deals with God's hate toward injustice. God's hatred of injustice is seen in his vindication of its victims. His solemn warnings, his penalties are against the guilty, and his commands to his people to renounce it. So we are to renounce injustice. The fourth thing we need to take note of is trustworthiness. Trustworthiness is that quality of truthfulness and dependability which rewards faith. God is trustworthy, and his people are called to be trustworthy in their dealings with other people. Scripture warns against pinning one's hopes on people and things that will prove untrustworthy. So qualities of those who are trustworthy is that they have integrity in business dealings. This is what I was talking about earlier. We need to be honest with one another. Even though, say, that other person, we know that they're not honest, we still as Christians are called to be honest in our dealings with others. False balance, this is like a term that they were using in this period of time. They would use a certain set of weights on a scale, like how a scale balances out. Well, they would put lighter weights so that the person would have to pay more money, and they would put heavier weights so the person would have to pay less money. It was dishonest the way they were dealing with it. Sometimes during that era, the way we think of it now is pay the person what you owe them. Charge the price that is honest. You make something for a certain amount of money. How much money are you gonna charge it for? Like triple, quadruple what it's worth? You know what I'm saying? Or are you gonna just charge times 2 so that way you can get a profit? You see what I'm saying? Be honest in your dealings with people in business. So the last thing we need to take note of is the will of God. The will of God is the intent and purpose of God as revealed in scripture. God's will for his creation and his people is set out in the law of the prophets, which find their fulfillment in Jesus Christ. A central aspect of the will of God is that his people be faithful and obedient. In this case, it is God's will for the world that God desires honesty and truth. So this scripture is calling us as Christians to honesty and truth. The opposite of truth is a lie, is false. The opposite of honesty is unhonest. So that's the main thing. This is God's will for the world. This is God's will for his people, for people that desire to please God in dealings in our business, in our buying and selling, in honesty in general, in being trustworthy so that you can live in this world. Think about it. If you're an honest business person, you're going to have more business. If you're an honest person and you do the work for an honest price, people are going to talk about it. Hey, that guy does good work at a good price. Or this guy makes good product at a good price. So you're going to be talked about, and this generates revenue for you. You see what I'm saying? It's wise to be honest and truthful in our business dealings in everyday life. So it's like a win-win for us when we do this wisdom that God is calling us to do in Proverbs chapter 11, verse 1.